job redundancies or being released from a job is of course the biggest concern for employees out there around the world, including in UK. A lot of companies are firing employees in IT space, professional services, or other companies as well, in the name of maybe appraisals, in the name of budget cuts or efficiency using AI or general business outlook as well. So that's already happening, really concerning as well. But at the same time, if you're on a skilled worker visa in the UK, that has much more complications for you in terms of visa implications and your right to work and stay in the UK as well. So in this video, I'll be talking about each and everything about skilled worker visa holder and the dependents, basically what to do in such case if you are made redundant. And the reason I'm making this video is I got to know quite a few people actually who are close to me, and I got to know they have been made redundant from different firms, different companies, and now they are struggling in terms of what are the requirements out there, what they have to do after their job termination, and what are the options out there. So in this video, I will literally talk about each and everything, including what are your options, how much time you have to find the job, or maybe switch on the visa category, what happens to dependents in terms of can they stay in the UK, can you travel for example, and then a lot more other complications like ISS refunds just in case you go, or your pensions. I'll talk about each and everything in this video, and we'll literally go through one example as well in terms of timelines, how timelines can work out. So stay tuned to the end if you're a skilled worker visa holder or the dependent. This video is really important, especially in the circumstances right now whereby people are being laid off quite often. Before that, a bit about myself. My name is KUMAR. I'm a chartered accountant working in big four firms in the UK, and my channel has more than 500 videos actually in terms of immigration, do it yourself, visa, careers, jobs in the UK, lifestyle in the UK, travel. There's a lot of content out there on my YouTube channel, so you can watch that and of course share your feedback as well. So getting back to the topic of redundancies and the visa implications and the options out there. So basically what happens, I'll give you an example in terms of timeline, so it's just easier for you to follow. So in terms of redundancies, your employer can fire you on the spot or can give you 1, 2, 3 months generally for you to make sure you find another job in the meantime. However, on the spot dismissals are generally something of either of disciplinary nature, or the company just removing a lot of workforce at the same time and revoking your access to systems immediately. So for this example, we'll assume that you are being fired on the spot, and we'll work out our timelines from that perspective. However, if your termination date is, for example, 1 month later, then you take your example from that date. So I'm taking the date that on the 1st of January 2025, you are told that you are being laid off and that's your last day of working. You don't have a grace period. What happens then is your employer is legally required to report to Home Office UKVI that you are being laid off, and they have to report that to Home Office in 10 working days, which is basically 2 weeks maximum. Now they can report on the first day, they can report on the 15th day. But for this example, we'll assume that they are very proficient, they are reporting on the first day. So on 1st of January 2025, they also reported to Home Office that you are being laid off and you no longer work with them. So 1st of January 2025, right? What happens then is a caseworker to Home Office reviews your case, and Home Office cancels your permission to stay by issuing a visa curtailment letter. In that curtailment letter, you're given 60 days from the date of receipt of that letter to actually find a new job, or maybe switch to another category of visa or leave the country. You have no other option. You cannot overstay. So visa curtailment letter and then plus 60 calendar days, which is basically 2 months. You got 2 months to actually find a new job or do something else or leave the country. So that's the date from visa curtailment letter. Now it's really important to understand what visa curtailment letter is, when it can be issued, or how you can receive that letter. So visa curtailment letter is something that actually reduces your permission to stay. For example, you may have a permission to stay until 1st of January 2026, but if you issued a visa curtailment letter, then the date that's mentioned in the letter is your last date. You cannot stay beyond that date in UK. Now in terms of visa curtailment, it can come in the post or email, it can come on the next day, it can come into 1 month later, it can come after 6 months, right? You never know. There's no timeline defined out there. I'm giving you very tough timelines in this example. Again, 1st January you are laid off, 1st January your employer reported, on 2nd of January you got a curtailment email from Home Office. Now you got 60 days from that later date that you have to either find a job. That's basically end of February. By end of February you have to find something or leave the UK. That's literally the purpose of curtailment letter. Now what can happen is your employer reported you on the 1st of January, however Home Office did not issue a curtailment letter for 6 months at all, and your 2 months start when you actually receive that curtailment letter. Basically, for example, 1st of January 2025 your employer reported to Home Office. Home Office issued a curtailment letter on 1st of June 2025. Now you got until 1st of July, 1st of August actually to find a job. So your permission is not cancelled despite losing the job unless Home Office actually issues you a curtailment letter. It can be issued to yourself in postal, email, or maybe your employer as well. So that's important to understand. So that's in terms of timelines. Another complication here is if your visa is about to expire, and that's happened with some of the people I know personally. If your visa is about to expire, for example, you may not get 60 days at all. Basically, in our example, if you got curtailment letter on 2nd of January and your visa was actually expiring, for example, maybe on 31st of January, you will not get 60 days at all. You will just get 30 days, which is actual visa expiry date. So 60 days is a maximum, but you have to make sure that your visa is not expiring before that. So that was in terms of timelines. Hopefully it's clear. Now in terms of options, what options you have out there. As I said earlier, 60 days is the time from the visa curtailment letter and not upon you are being removed from the job. So you may have actually more time to find job. But for this, you were taking a very strict view that you just got 60 days from the actual termination. Options wise, of course, the most feasible option out there is to find another job was on skilled worker visa, and another employer can give you a certificate of sponsorship and you just switch your job by change of employer sort of application and skilled worker visa. That's the most ideal, most visible and most working solution, of course. And the important thing is you have to find a job in that case and an employer who is able to sponsor you. That's the best option out there. The other option, of course, is leave after 60 days if you're not able to find any job and you want to go back to your home country. And the third option is you can change to other sort of visas as well. In terms of other visas, for example, global talent visa, innovative visa, student visa, or maybe dependent visa if your partner is already having ILR, maybe British passport, so you can apply for their spouse as well. So there are options out there, and then your ILR eligibility is of course dependent on what sort of routes you had. I'm not going into that details in this video, but of course any sort of visa has ILR implications, and you have to make sure you're switching to a legal sort of visa, and that's something that's allowed. So there may be options out there, but the ideal option is finding another job on skilled worker visa and work from there. So that's all in terms of options. Now some specific questions in terms of can you actually work or maybe do part-time jobs, especially if you are removed from your current job. Can you do something to earn in UK while you're trying to find a job? The answer is not ideal, but you cannot really work with any employer ideally because your visa is curtailed. Your visa is linked to an employer and they have removed your right to work essentially. So you cannot do any part-time job as allowed as supplementary work under skilled worker visa. You cannot do that. You cannot work with any employer in that case. What you have to do is make sure you find another job and the employer which can issue you certificate of sponsorship, and you can only work with that employer. And once that certificate of sponsorship issues, you can do another job as well. That's allowed. However, once your visa is curtailed, once your employer has removed you from the certificate of sponsorship, you cannot do any other job legally in the UK. Despite the fact that the visa curtailment letter may not be issued for 1 to 3 months, just in case, you cannot legally work, and of course you have to bear expenses for yourself. So of course the best option out there is trying to find another job which can offer you a certificate of sponsorship, and you just switch to a skilled worker visa. The other important question is, can you actually travel in that time while your job is terminated, or after when you are issued a curtailment letter? Can you actually travel? So you can actually travel after your job termination until you are issued a visa curtailment letter. However, after your visa is cancelled by issuing a curtailment letter, you should not be traveling outside the UK because you may not be allowed to enter at all in the UK. At the same time, as I mentioned, you can travel before the visa cancellation letter. However, you should not travel. You should be more cautious, because what happens is your job got terminated, you had a lot of expenses, you went outside the UK and tried to find a job, and in the background, visa curtailment letter is issued on the email, right? If that's issued, you are lost. Now you cannot come back to UK. So it's of course cautious. You just stay in the UK and try to find a job and not travel at all. Now the next important bit about dependents. What happens with dependents? If you're on skilled worker visa and you got your dependent, your wife, your husband, or maybe children as well. Now what happens to them? So once your visa curtailment letter is issued, your visa is cancelled, their visa is also automatically cancelled as well. So they cannot stay in the UK once your visa is cancelled. Literally you are gonna follow exactly same pattern for all of people together. It's not like your visa is cancelled, their visa is outstanding, it's cancelled at the same time. So it's still important again to find another job so that you can renew your visa, you can renew your dependent's visa at the same time. Next thing I just want to highlight is what happens to IHS surcharge. Maybe you paid IHS for 3 years and now you are being laid off after 1 year. Can you get that refund back? No, you cannot. It's not allowed in the sort of category that your visa is curtailed, then you're not allowed to get the refund. Some other bits I did a bit of research, just want to highlight is in terms of redundancies, make sure to get your statutory pay. If you got any unused holidays, you can get pay for that, and of course if there's any redundancy pay, you may be eligible for that as well, so you make sure to do that. If you are eventually leaving the UK, you need to make sure you settle your bills, etc., everything, and then maybe you can transfer your pension overseas. You can keep that in the UK as well. So just think of all those things as well once you are planning to move outside the UK, just in case you cannot find another employer. Also, in terms of overstaying in the UK, you pass the 60 days curtailment period, you still overstayed in the UK, that may be really problematic, because in that case your driving license may be cancelled, you may not be allowed to go for NHS services. There can be a lot of complications. Your children may not be allowed to get that sort of education. So 60 days is a limit. You need to make sure you find something or have to leave the country, and overstaying has its own complications. You may never be allowed to come back to UK again. You may be banned from UK. there can be host of complications, so make sure to leave by the time if you cannot find a job, unfortunately. There's another important bit in terms of section 3C. I'm not going to talk in detail in terms of this video, but we'll catch that up in a separate video, as what section 3C means, what it means in terms of your visa application, and how it gives you more flexibility in terms of some of the days. Hopefully this video gives you some perspective, and especially if you're being laid off, this is a really challenging time for you. But know your options in terms of different visas, going out of UK, finding another job, and 60 days. You may be lucky you don't get curtailment letter at all. But hopefully this video helps. Thank you so much for watching.